Welcome to Old Man Sports Talk. I'm your host, Old Man Nate, and today we're talking nothing but football at the 26 Lounge in Oklahoma City. So if you're in Oklahoma City, get in your car and drive on up to 26 Lounge at 9622 North May and check out nothing but football up leading up to a little bit over past the starting time of the Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings tonight. We had somebody walk in with their Philadelphia Eagles jersey on, so they fired up here in Oklahoma City for the Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings, kicking off week 2 of the NFL football tonight. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the week 2 of college football last week. So the games I have highlighted for last week, we're gonna go over those real quick. So I had let's see here, looking at my notes right now. Okay, so some main games that I had interested in last week was Notre Dame and North Carolina State. Notre Dame managed to pull that out and win 45-24. And then we also had a big game between Miami and Texas A&M, and Miami ended up winning that one. And I picked Miami to win that game, 48-33. So high scoring game, but Miami was just too much for the Texas A&M Aggies. Next game, talk about our interested in checking out was Ole Miss and Tulane. Now, Tulane did not have their starting quarterback. He was injured just in the week 1 game. Nothing serious, but it held him out for week 2. I'm not sure if he's going to play this week or not. And Tulane actually gave Ole Miss a fight in the first half, a close game, but Ole Miss ended up pulling away in the second half. Another game was interested in keeping track of was Colorado and Nebraska. I watched almost all of that game, if not all of it. And I tell you, Nebraska, if they would just run their quarterback or run the ball a lot more, then they would they would do a lot better. The first half against Colorado, really Nebraska shot themselves in the foot and was the reason that they weren't ahead. You know, they were down, I think, 13-0 or 13-3 at halftime, but 3 turnovers in the first half, all on their side of the field, and unnecessary turnovers. They were snapping turnovers. Or 2 of them were anyway. 2 of them, the ball hit that on the snap. The quarterback was in shotgun, hit him right in the hands, and he bobbled him. He lost him, and Colorado recovered him. A third time, though, they had a guy in motion when the center snapped the ball. It hit him. Didn't even get back to the quarterback. But on that one, the guy in motion actually ended up had enough awareness that it hit him and jumped on the fumble. Or that one could have been a turnover also. But yeah, the uncostly errors. I'm not going to say Nebraska would have won the game because the Colorado took over in the second half and ended up, blown away and winning the game really easily. But those costly, it's probably, Colorado may not even score in the first half. It's not for those turnovers because they weren't moving the ball either in the first half. Nebraska did play really good defense in the first half. Colorado made great adjustments in the second half. Another game, of course, was the big game of the night, Alabama and Texas. And this is the second week in a row that I'm going to say that, in my opinion, a lot of people, fans and media, are way overreacting on this game. Now, it's like oh, let's put Texas in the college football playoff because they beat Alabama at Alabama. Not saying that Alabama is not is a slouch team, because they're not. However, they're not Alabama of 3 years ago that played in the playoffs, or and I believe 3 or 4 years ago won national championship. They're not that caliber. Um, here's how I know it. Number one, uh, number one, Texas wouldn't have won and Alabama would have won if they were. Number two, in week one, Texas' offensive line had trouble against Rice. Rice defensive line was able to get to the quarterback and stacked him, I think, 3 or 4 times in that game. Alabama didn't even come close to getting to Ewers. So their defensive front is not even close to how it used to be. Even last year's defensive line. Of course, remember they put Ewers out. They got pressure on him on a pass. They landed on his shoulder wrong. They couldn't even do that yesterday. Now, I'm not saying that Texas ain't a better team than they were year before, because they are. However, again, I said the week before, Rice was getting to the quarterback, and Alabama wasn't even close to getting to Ewers. So that tells me they're not as good. Their quarterback is definitely not as good. He's a different type of quarterback. Well, I guess he'd fall in the same category as Hurts and Bryce Young, because he can run the ball like they can, but his throwing ability is not near as good as those two. So, and it's obviously his reading defensive, because his first interception was just a terrible pass. Two guys could have picked that one off. One obviously did. The second one could have. And his late interception, just a bad throw. So, anyways, I'm not. I did. If you look at my rankings, I did move Texas up 8 spots. I dropped Alabama 7 spots. However, I don't have Texas in my top 5. I think I got them at 8. Let me look here. I got Texas at 8. So they moved up, and they're better than I thought they were. However, I'm not putting them in the playoff yet, unlike everybody else. So another game to look at last week, Wisconsin and Washington State. And Washington State, hold on, Pac-12. Washington State might be for real, as they held. They swept the series with Wisconsin. They went into Wisconsin last year and won the game. This year, they maintained it at home and won a little bit easier. They won by 9. I think last year they won by 7 or a field goal or something. 1 score, I believe it was. This year they won by 2 scores. So good job for them. Another game, Kansas and Illinois last week. Kansas, hey, them Texas Longhorns play Kansas in a couple weeks, and that to me is going to be interesting. It's a home game for Texas, but Kansas has been a team that has always, well, not always, every year, but has given Texas problems in the past, including beating them 2 years ago, I believe it was, maybe 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. They beat them, and this is when Kansas, like their only win was that year, maybe their second win. But yeah, Kansas has been a thorn in Texas' side, and they are a lot better than they were 2 or 3 years ago. But Texas, I believe, is a lot better than they were 2 or 3 years ago also. Matter of fact, it was the year that it was 3 years ago, because it was Sark's first year, and they went 5-8 that year, and that was one of the games that I think they lost like their last 6 or 7 games in a row, and that was one of them. So I think this is going to be a test. Kansas is looking really good. They were out to a big lead over Illinois last week and ended up winning by 11. They did cover the spread. I think the spread was like 7.5, something like that. So great job for Kansas as they moved to 2-0. Big game for this week I'm looking forward to. So, first game we're talking about is Washington at Michigan State. That's going to be a test. First road game for Washington. Michigan State, if you followed anything this week, has had some controversy this week with their head coach who has been suspended, not fired. First reports report he was fired. He was not fired, but he has been suspended for allegations of sexual misconduct with, of all people, their spokesperson against sexual abuse. So that's an interesting story. I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to talk about it because all I'm doing is speculating. They're not releasing a lot of information about it. And so I'm not going to do no speculation when it comes to something like that. But it'd be interesting. Is Michigan State going to rally around whoever is coaching? And I'm not sure. They did announce whose name it is, but I'm not sure. But I also heard that their former coach, D'Antoni, I believe it was, is going to assist the team. Now, what that means, I don't know. I don't even know if he's going to be on the sidelines or if he's just going to be helping in other areas. I don't know what that means. But yeah, that'll be an interesting game. Washington definitely can win the game. I think they're a 14-point favorite right now, 14.5-point favorite, something like that. They could definitely cover that spread. However, it'd be interesting. I'm not sure if they will, if they'll cover the spread, but I definitely think they'll win. I think Michigan State will have some momentum, some reason to play. Besides the fact that Washington, a top 5 school, it's coming into their home. There's stuff going on with their coach to make it very interesting on if they or how well they play. Hey, if you're watching, you're online, please drop a comment. Just say hi so I know who all's watching. Appreciate you guys for watching. Also, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell. That way you get notified every time Old Man Nate drops a video or goes live. If you're on TikTok, on YouTube, go to Old Man Sports Talk and follow Old Man Nate and help his channel grow. Also, hey, what's up, Bill? Thanks for your support. So also, if you can go to oldmancoffee.shop and you can get you some coffee. We have 47 different. You can get you some coffee, and then you can also get you a tumbler on oldmancoffee.shop to drink your coffee in. And then last but not least, if you want a t-shirt, go to oldmancoffee.shop and get you a t-shirt or two. We're still having a special right now. If you buy one tumbler, one t-shirt, or 2 tumblers or 2 t-shirts, you'll get you a 12-ounce bag of coffee for free. All right? So go on there, do that, check it out, and we appreciate all your support. There we go. All right. So get over here. Back over here. So now we talked about Washington and Michigan State. Another game I'm interested in watching. So finally this week, I think Georgia will be tested for the first time, but I don't think it's a big test. Okay. Let me put it that way. I do not think it's going to be a big test, but I think it's by far the toughest team they have played so far. And they have struggled coming out the gate in both of their first 2 games. It will be interesting to see if South Carolina can play well enough defense to somehow get some turnovers and get them some points, okay? Because that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to get turnovers in order to beat Georgia at Georgia. Because South Carolina's offense has not looked good at all. Their offensive line has looked atrocious. And we all know Georgia's got a good defensive line. They're going to come ready to, be looking to sack South Carolina about 6 or 7 times in the game. So in order to keep the game balanced, South Carolina's gonna have to run the ball, make quick passes, keep if he just drops back, he's not gonna be able to sit back for 5 or 6 seconds. 3 seconds and at the most, he's gonna be have to get rid of the ball. So the deep passes probably are not going to happen. But they're going to have to get turnovers. They can make it a short field, maybe put it in the kicker's hands. And it'll be interesting, though. I really would like to see if Georgia's offense can finally get off to a hot start and get, against a pretty good defense. All right. The next game I want to talk about is Texas Wyoming. And here's the thing. I don't think Wyoming is going to give Texas any problems. However, after a big win last week, not only were they an underdog, but they outright won the game. And then they celebrated drinking cigars or smoking cigars in the locker room of Alabama. The way that they was treated by Texas did the same thing to Alabama, but by putting their band up in the sky rise of the stand. Um, I just be interested to see if Texas has any motivation at all to play this game, because I think right now they are feeling like they are the best team in the Big 12. There's not anybody else close, and you might as well just pencil them in the playoff. We all know how that works. When you think like that, something out of nowhere comes and knocks you a step or two down. I'm not saying Wyoming will do that, but I do think if Texas keeps that attitude, there will be a team or two that will knock them a step or two down to keep them from playing the Big 12 championship, to keep them from making the playoff. So I'm not saying I want that, because I would love. In fact, I predicted OU and Texas to play in the Big 12 championship, and that's what I would like to see. So the next team I want to talk about is Tennessee and Florida. On paper, that sounds like it's going to be a great game. However, Florida's offense has not looked very good. They haven't against Utah. I think it was week 1. They did not move the ball at all. They scored a late touchdown to get 11 points to kind of make it look like a somewhat respectable game, but it really was not even respectable against Utah. So at home, playing against Tennessee, we know Florida's going to be fired up to play, and they would love to knock off Tennessee in a big game for them and make them, because that could give them momentum playing Georgia in a couple of weeks. Give them, because you're just starting conference play. Everybody got a shot once conference play starts. It doesn't matter if you won or if you lost, all your non-conference games. When it starts conference season, everybody got a shot. And so this would be a great momentum builder for Florida. Tennessee hasn't looked outstanding like they did last year at this time, but they have looked good. I mean, they beat a top Power 5 team in Virginia, and they won. They beat somebody else, but yeah, they haven't looked great. I don't think they scored 50 points this year, which is really surprising. So anyway, if you can't hear people over here, they're fired up about this Minnesota and Philadelphia game. We got a lot of Philadelphia fans over here, and they're cheering on their Eagles. No Viking fans in here, though. Next game we'll talk about this week I'm looking forward to is North Carolina and Minnesota. North Carolina looked great in week 1 against South Carolina, struggled last week against Appalachian State, only won by 6 points in overtime. So, yeah, that's not going to get it done. They had a high, but again, here we're talking about okay, so anyway, just like Texas, they had a big win. Are they going to struggle against Wyoming this week? Right, I think it's North Carolina. They had a big win against South Carolina week 1, week 2, and Appalachian State is not a scrub. Okay, they've been known for upsets. Remember a few years ago, probably about 10 years ago, they beat Michigan by blocking a punt or blocking a field goal to secure their win. And then last year they beat Texas A&M at Texas A&M. So they have been known to make those upsets. But still no excuse. Still no excuse um, for North Carolina to have it that close. Next game we're going to talk about again is Alabama and South Florida. This is another game I don't think will be close. But in fact, I think Alabama is going to be super motivated. I think they're going to beat South Florida by about 50. I think the spread is like 32.5. I think it's going to be interesting because Alabama lost. They didn't look great, and now they got stuff to prove. And I really do think they're going to come out ready to prove it and fired up. And then South Florida, I feel sorry for you because I know you weren't planning to be a victim after a loss, but yeah, you're going to be a big victim after the loss last week. And it's probably going to be really ugly for you. Next game, LSU at Mississippi State, a conference game. It's conference game, first conference game for both of them. And yeah, I think that this will be a good game. LSU should win easily. However, it's at Mississippi State, and we know how these road games are in any conference, really. Against, when you got at least a decent team, they have a chance to win it. So Mississippi State probably will cover the spread, but I wouldn't be surprised if LSU won that game. Next game we're going to talk about Colorado and Colorado State. All right. So Colorado has looked really good in 2 weeks. Bill, I seen you on your comment. Prime time needs respect. Your dark horse. Was it at your dark horse to win the Pac-12, or your dark horse to make the playoff, or your dark horse to win the national championship? Yeah, give me an answer on that. So I'll tell you what, Colorado is better than I thought they were going to be. I believe I had them picked 11th to finish 11th in the conference. They should finish way above that. But the Pac-12 is going to be the tough conference. All three. Oh, so he says this is dark horse to win the Pac-12, his dark horse to make the college football playoff, and his dark horse to win it. Okay. Now let me ask you this: was that before the season started, or now that the season started at your dark horse? So, but yeah, I think Colorado's gonna get woke up here, once they start conference play, because in my opinion, as I've said several times, the Pac-12 is the toughest conference in football this year. There's a lot of good teams at the top, and they keep getting more. Washington State's coming up now; they're going to get some recognition. Oregon State's going to get some recognition. That's on top of Utah, Washington, Oregon, USC, and Colorado. So, yeah, it's going to be really tough, interesting conference this year. Next game I want to talk about is Kansas State and Missouri. That's an old back. That game goes back to the Big 12, the Big 8 days. Those guys have always been rivals. I don't think they still play every year, but I know they played last year, and I believe Missouri won last year at Kansas State. No, I take it back. Kansas State won, but they ended up their loss in knockout. I forgot they lost to was Tulane. And Kansas State went on to win the Big 12 last year. Don't forget, they were pretty good. But this year they're playing at Missouri. Kansas State has been playing really good football. Missouri has not. Another team that won by like a touchdown last week against not a very good team. So was they looking ahead and they're going to be ready to play Kansas State? It's a possibility. I haven't got to watch Missouri play at all, but yeah, if they get slaughtered in this game, like it's a good possibility, then Missouri's going to start heading downhill then once they hit conference play. Louisville and Indiana, I'll be interested. Louisville is playing really good. Indiana played, they kind of shut Ohio State down in week 1, and then I think they won last week. They struggled last week. They won. So it'll be interesting. Can Indiana slow down Louisville? Louisville's offense has been looking pretty good. Their defense has been pretty good too. That would be a very interesting game. I would like to, I'd like to see that turn out to be a good game. So those are my college games I'm looking forward to this week to watch. Now, real quick, I was doing some notes earlier that I want to talk about some. So earlier this week, I gave my rankings on the Power 5 conferences from 1 through 5. And in case you missed it, I'll re-give them to you real quick. At number 1, I got the ACC. Number 3, I got the Big 10. Number 4, the Big 12. And that's right, believe it or not, coming in at 5 is the SEC. Now, all y'all are going, whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, man, Nate, what the heck? How can you have the SEC at the last out of all the Power 5 conferences? We've been winning national championships since 2010, 2008, really. And how can you have it? We won like 12 of the last 14. How can you have us the last in the conference? Well, here's why. Now, I'm not saying there isn't nobody capable of winning national championship this year in the Big or SEC. There is. However, from top to bottom, let's look what the conference has done so far. So, by the way, ACC is 4-3 against. These are the records against other Power 5 conferences right now. Now, this week there's going to be some more Power 5 non-conference games, and we'll add those in next week, and we'll see how it turns out then. But as of right now, the ACC is 4-3 against other Power 5 conferences. However, they're also 4-1 against the SEC. That's right. The ACC is 4-1 against the SEC. The Big 10 is 3-3 against other Power 5 conferences, and they're 2-1 against the Big 12, but they're 0-2 against the Pac-12. The Big 12 is 4-5 against other Power 5 conferences, 1-3 against the Pac-12, 1-2 against the Big 10. The Pac-12, here's where to stand out. They are 6-3 against other Power 5 conferences, 3-1 against the Big 12, 2-0 against the Big 10. And the SEC, look at this. This is why they're fifth. They're 3-6 against other Power 5 conferences, 1-4 against the ACC. And you got teams like Alabama, LSU, and Texas A&M who all have received non-conference losses to these Power 5 schools. Alabama to the Big 12 in Texas, LSU to the ACC in Florida State, and Texas A&M also to the ACC in Miami. So that's why I have those rankings. As you can see, there's a big difference between number 1 Pac-12 and then Big 10 or ACC is the only other conference with a winning record right now. But here's the thing: ACC and the Big 10 have a big, I would call it ACC Big 10 matchup this week. So there's 11 Power 5 non-conference games. Okay, and the ACC has 6 Big 10 matchups. That's right. The ACC and Big 10 are playing in 6 different games this weekend. The ACC and SEC play in 1. The ACC and Big 12 play in 1. The Big 12 and SEC are going to play 2 games, and the Pac-12 and Big 10 are going to play 1 game. So, yeah, and here's the games for you. So Friday night you're going to have Virginia versus Maryland in an ACC Big 10 matchup. Then Saturday you got Louisville versus Indiana ACC Big 10 matchup. Minnesota versus North Carolina in a Big 10 ACC matchup. Northwestern versus Duke in a Big 10 ACC matchup. Virginia Tech versus Rutgers in an ACC Big 10 matchup. And then the only ACC SEC matchup, you got Georgia Tech versus Ole Miss. So Ole Miss should win that game. So they will then improve to 2-4 versus the ACC if they won that one. If not, they dropped to 1-5, and that would be a bad loss to SEC too. Other games, we got Syracuse versus Purdue in an ACC Big Ten matchup. Pittsburgh versus West Virginia in the only ACC Big 12 matchup this weekend. Kansas State versus Missouri, we talked about earlier, in a Big 12 SEC matchup. And in the other Big 12 SEC matchup, we have BYU versus Arkansas. That would be a very interesting game. We didn't talk about that one earlier. Last year, Arkansas went into Pullman and won that game, but it was a high-scoring shootout. I don't think you're going to have a high-scoring shootout this year. I think both defenses are better, so I think it'll be a good game. I know that last time I checked, Arkansas was like a 8-point favorite, something like that. It'd be interesting to see if they are able. I would not be surprised if BYU covers the spread. In the Pac-12 Big Ten matchup, the only Pac-12 Big Ten matchup will be Washington at Michigan State. We already talked about that game. I think Washington wins that game. And, yeah, that's it. That's all the games. So, very, very interesting. Again, next week we will give our really probably be our final. I know there'll be some SEC usually has some games in the season, but those are not against Power 5 schools. So, it'll be like Georgia and Georgia Tech. That's one. So that will help a little bit. But and Clemson and South Carolina, yeah, those will help the ACC or SEC in those games. But for the most part, like Alabama's not going to play a non-power or a Power 5 school. Yeah, most of the SEC teams do not play Power 5 schools at the end of the season in those matchups. So really, this is your weekend, and the SEC is not going to have a chance to catch up. They're probably going to stay fifth. But yeah. Oh, here we go. Bill says, like them before. He's talking about Colorado. He knew he would change the program around, but to me, his boy is a Heisman watch along with the guy that goes both ways. That's Travis Hunter. He's talking about Travis Hunter. If he can stay healthy playing 120 snaps a week, I really like them to win Pac-12 and make playoffs. Doubt they win the Natty. So, love your feedback, Bill. I definitely think Travis Hunter, it's going to be difficult for him to win a Heisman unless he really has some outstanding numbers on offense, because they're not going to throw – defenses are not going to throw the ball his way that often. You know, I mean, that was a great interception he had in week 1 against TCU. And he almost had one last week. He dropped the ball. But they're not going to throw that, you know, his way enough for him to win the Heisman just specifically on defense alone. And just because you're doing 120 snaps a game is not going to guarantee you a Heisman. You got to have some action going your way. So that means his offensive numbers have got to pick up a lot. But I do think he's definitely a talented enough player to make it to New York. Shedeur Sanders definitely has the talent to make it. But we'll see how he does in the Pac-12. That's my thing. Now, I do think two things I'm going to say about the USC game. And they play in a couple weeks. I do think they have a chance to win that. But here's the reason why. USC don't play no defense. None. If you're a betting person, then you're going to want to take the over in that game. If it's less than 100 points, take the over. Because the final score will be like 63-56. So, because either team really has good defense. Colorado looked like they had good defense against Nebraska last week. That's because Nebraska's offense is horrible, okay? And because they created their own turnovers. Colorado didn't have to force the turnovers. Nebraska just gave the ball to them. So, yeah, I really don't think Colorado's defense is much better than USC's. I would probably say it is a little bit better than USC's, but I don't think that I don't think that it's very good either. So definitely take the over. Now, I really can't say that. Again, the Pac-12 is so deep. There is no way that I would say Colorado has a chance to win the conference. No, I don't. Now, will they finish higher than what I predicted them to finish at 11th? I would say probably so. But right now, really, there's 7 or – I mean, you can throw Colorado in this too. There's probably 7 or 8 teams, maybe 9, that have a legit chance to win the Pac-12. Everybody just assumes it's going to be USC, Oregon, Washington, or Utah, and those are the four front runners. But there, you can't you can't forget about Colorado. You can't forget about uh, um, Washington State or Oregon State. So, yeah, it'll be interesting conference to watch every week. So, but yeah, next week we will put back out our conference rankings and let everybody know how the conferences did. I don't see any way that USC moves out of the 5 spot though, because they're 3-6 and 1-4 against ACC. So they only have one game this week, or 3 games. They have 3 games. They could, like I say, I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting. They might go. If they win all 3, they might be able to. So, anyway, let's kick it over to the NFL now. We got the NFL game right now on. I don't know if anybody's paying attention to it, but let's see. The Eagles are up 3-0 over the Vikings. You probably hear all the people cheering every time the Eagles do something. So, yeah, be interesting. See who wins that. So last week, who won games? All right, so Detroit. This time last week, Detroit and Kansas City were playing, and I told you before the game started. I said if Travis Kelce doesn't play, then the Detroit Lions would win. And sure enough, they did. They only won by 1 point, but they did pull it out. And, Mahomes is not the same without his best receiver, that tight end, Travis Kelce. That's his buddy, too. They're not just, a good combination on the field. Off the field, they are like best friends. They hang out a lot. They do all kinds of things together. I've seen them on videos of concerts together. They play in a golf event, a couple of golf events this year in the summertime. So I watched that. That was pretty cool. I like watching them. They're both better golfers than I am. I don't know if they're better than Billy, though. Billy over there is a pretty good golfer. So, but yeah, interesting watching them play. I enjoyed it. Also, Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers went into Minnesota and pulled off the upset and won 20-17. Baker looked really sharp in that game. Also, in a game really where I think it's going to be nothing but bottom feeders, it's Carolina and Atlanta. Atlanta went on to win that one 24-10. So, yeah, I just don't think Carolina's going to be very good this year. I feel sorry for Bryce Young. Hopefully he can stay healthy because he's going to get sacked a lot. It's a surprise game for me. I did not see this coming. Joe Burrow played and not look like Joe Burrow we've seen the last couple of years. Really, if you go all the way back to college days, he did not look like him at all. They're Cincinnati Bengals are one of 2 teams to not score a touchdown in week 1. The other one was the New York Football Giants, who got shut out. Blank. But even Cincinnati, they got a field goal. They did not get a touchdown. So Cleveland went on to win that game 24-3. Really surprised for me. I did not see that coming. Jacksonville, they played Indianapolis. I was really surprised that Richardson, he didn't throw the ball very good, which I didn't fear he would, but his legs came into play, and in the first half it kept them in the ball game. But Jacksonville pulled away and won by 10, 31-21. New Orleans struggled way too much. Tennessee is not a very good. Their offense is terrible. Everybody thought they got DeAndre Hopkins. They was going to be really good on offense. I knew that one because DeAndre Hopkins is such a good wide receiver. People double team, sometimes triple team him. Now, I did think that it was going to leave Trey Burks open a lot more, and they couldn't find him at all. I got him in my fantasy football league, and yeah, really, really disappointed in my fantasy football league on him in my fantasy football league last week. New Orleans ended up winning the game 16-15 in a low-scoring game. The San Francisco and Pittsburgh game, I was not surprised on the outcome, but the total dominance that the 49ers had on a professional offense, I was very surprised on. The Pittsburgh Steelers didn't get a first down until under 2 minutes to go in the first half. Their last possession of the first half was when they finally got a first down. And the 49ers ended up winning 30-7. They were in control of this game early. Probably could have won a lot more, but just went in cruise control and won it 30-7. Washington and Arizona. This game actually, I figured Washington would win by a lot more. Arizona put on a fight. I thought that Arizona would be tanking and, look like the Detroit Lions of old. It was losing, and the Detroit Lions that went over a couple times. I thought that's what the Cardinals will do this year, and they still may, but they actually gave up a dogfight, and Washington only won by 20-16. Baltimore and Houston. I said before the game started that this was going to be a blowout, and it was, as Baltimore beat Houston 25-9. Green Bay at Chicago. This is another surprise for me. I didn't know what to expect out of Jordan Love. He's been riding the bench for 3 years behind Rodgers. Rodgers left and went to the Jets, and so now it's his time to shine. Just wasn't sure how much of a shine he's going to do, especially since Justin Fields had been at the Bears for a couple years, was really the seasoned veteran of the two quarterbacks. I thought Chicago would be looking a lot better than they did. But Green Bay is the one that routed Chicago, winning 38-20 in Chicago. So, Aaron Rodgers used to go in there in Chicago, and when they win, he say he owns Chicago. It may not be Aaron Rodgers that owns it. It may be Green Bay that owns it. So, yeah, very interesting on that. Next one, Las Vegas at Denver. Now, I'm not surprised that Las Vegas won, but I was surprised that it was a 1-point game as they only won 17-16. Philadelphia versus New England. New England actually looked better offensively than I thought they would. Philadelphia didn't look. I haven't really got to watch this game over here yet. No, it's still 3-0. Philadelphia hasn't looked like the Philadelphia of last year. This season, they scored 25 points last week, won 25-20. Here we are. I can't see how much time's left. I think they're still in the first quarter. I don't know. I can't see it, but they're only up 3-0. Anyways, moving on. Miami and the Chargers. This was a great game, a shootout. Miami had the ball last. Miami won the ball game. Just that simple. 36-34. Great game, though. Two offenses that are really good. Chargers will bounce back, and they'll have a chance this week to win. We'll get to those in just a second. Next game, the Rams at Seattle. And this was really a surprise. Seattle last year won a surprise team with Geno Smith, and I believe they made the playoffs, but that's last week. They did not look like a playoff team. The Rams did not make playoffs last year, struggled a lot, but they look like they're ready to make a playoff run this year as they routed Seattle 30-13. And then the surprise of the weekend, the Dallas Cowboys went into MetLife Stadium and beat the New York Football Giants. No, my bad. They didn't beat them. They whooped the New York Football Giants' ass 40-0. That's right, 40-0. And I had a friend call me out this week because he's a Dallas Cowboy fan. I told him the Cowboys was the third best team in that division. Right now, I'm looking like I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Like I told him, that's just one game, so we'll see what happens. But the Giants have got the players They should not have been. Now, the Dallas Cowboy defense really, really surprised me. I knew they were good, but not they. We'll see if that's a fluke. What happened the other night? But they played really, really well. The Dallas Cowboy offense didn't have to do anything. They did not have to do anything at all. So, yeah. Uh, but yeah, and then the last game of the night or weekend, Buffalo at the New York Jets. 4 plays in, the New York Jets lose their franchise quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, to an Achilles tear, and his season is over. And they bring in the quarterback who played last year, and Zach Wilson, who, remember, he's the one who got on the microphone during a press conference, and they lost a game, I believe, to Chicago. It might have been Baltimore. They lost to Baltimore. I believe it was 10-3. And the lone touchdown was a punt return late in the game that won the game for Baltimore. And he got on the microphone and said it wasn't his fault they lost, but they didn't move the ball the whole game. So as a quarterback, you should never say that. You should never say it wasn't your fault. It's always your fault when you lose a game, regardless if you threw 5 touchdowns and no interceptions. Be humble and take the blame for it. That's caused a lot of terror into the locker room, and really, it started downhill. And he ended up getting benched. Some games not even suiting out, and the Jets were willing to take losses with another quarterback, as in Joe Flacco, and so that's why they picked up Aaron Rodgers in the offseason, because they wanted that veteran quarterback to come in and lead them to the playoffs and maybe the AFC Championship and hopefully a Super Bowl. Well, that's what they were hoping, and that's what a lot of people were thinking is going to happen. And then 4 plays into it, they lose Aaron Rodgers, the guy they thought was going to take them to the promised land, and he just, So here comes Zach Wilson, the guy that last year there were guys on the team didn't want him on the team anymore. But here it is, game 1. You're not going to say, oh, well, here's this guy again and lay down on week 1. I will also say this, though. Ever since Aaron Rodgers has been a Jet, that team has looked entirely different. And I'm not talking about the play on the field. I'm talking about the way the team carried itself. And I believe, even though Aaron Rodgers was not on the field, his presence with the team was on the field. And they played like a team that just never gave up. I believe they were down 13-0 or 13-3 at halftime. And they rallied to win 22-16, holding the Buffalo Bills only to a field goal in the second half. And that field goal came with under a minute to go to send the game to overtime, because the Jets had took a lead. They had rallied back to take the lead. And then Josh Allen scored, moving down the field to get him a field goal range to tie the game, send it to overtime. And Josh Allen, by the way, the defense played really good. Josh Allen threw 3 picks, I believe, to the same person. And, in the second half, he looked like Zach Wilson instead of a Josh Allen. But yeah, and then in overtime, Bills got the ball first. The Jets forced a 3-and-out. They punt the ball, or Bills punt the ball, and the Jets run the punt back for a touchdown, a walk-off win. So great win by the New York Jets. And I got to tell you, like I said earlier, with Aaron Rodgers on the team, I'm not even saying on the field, on the team, the Jets look like a totally different team. I'm hoping that he can keep Zach Wilson under control, and they would still have a chance to win the division, make the playoffs, make it to the AFC Championship game, and who knows, maybe somehow sneak into the Super Bowl. Yeah, that would be. I would like to see that happen. I like what Aaron Rodgers has done there. He looks a lot happier. Not as a teammate, he looks like a lot happier. And obviously, he's not happy. He just got his Achilles torn and out for the season. But maybe he'll see the bright side of it. And he can. I don't know if he's ever thought about coaching. But that's really what he's going to be doing the rest of the season is coaching Zach Wilson. So key games this week. Right now, you got the Minnesota Philadelphia game going on. I think Philadelphia will win that game. Green Bay at Atlanta. I think Green Bay goes on the road and wins that game. Buffalo hosting Las Vegas. Las Vegas coming off a win. Buffalo coming off of that loss. But I think Buffalo will get the win this week. Baltimore at Cincinnati. A tough division game. I really think that Baltimore, I don't know. Baltimore looked good. Cincinnati looked terrible. I didn't watch the Cincinnati-Cleveland game. I really don't know what the issues were. But I'm Seattle at Detroit. Again, Detroit, which they look like a team on a mission. Seattle struggled last week. I'm going to go with Detroit to start off 2-0. I want to find out when's the last time Detroit started 2-0. Somebody tell me that. Bill, tell me when's the last time Detroit started 2-0. The Chargers at Tennessee. I think the Chargers bounce back this week after that tough loss to Miami, and they go into Nashville and win this game. The Bears at Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, I believe, are going to start 2-0. This will be a good game, a close game, though. But I think Tampa Bay starts off 2-0. Kansas City at Jacksonville. Rematch from the playoffs last year. Kansas City won. I think Kansas City will go into Jacksonville and win this one, too. But so let me say this also. I haven't heard if Travis Kelce is playing. If Travis Kelce is not playing, then, yeah, it would be tough for Kansas City to win. They need Kelce in order to win the ballgame. Indianapolis against Houston. We got a matchup against the two rookie quarterbacks in Richardson, Indianapolis in 2011. Thanks, Bill. 2011 was the last time the Jets started 2-0. So over a decade. Watch out for it to happen this weekend. I'm not the Jets. I'm sorry, the Lions. 2-0. 2011, last time the Lions started 2-0. Watch for it to happen again this weekend. Indianapolis and Houston, like I said, we got two rookie quarterbacks going head-to-head. Yeah, I know, the Lions. Yeah, I said the Jets, but I meant the Lions. You're right. We got Richardson going on the road to take on I knew his name. This Ohio State quarterback. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. Yeah. I think Houston wins this game. Houston's defense will be good enough to keep Richardson contained. Stroud, that's his name, C.J. Stroud. And C.J. Stroud will be able to throw enough on Indianapolis. I think the Texans win this game. San Francisco taking on the Rams. Now, this game is interesting because the Rams played really well last weekend. 49ers played really well last weekend. I'm not surprised the 49ers played well. I am surprised the Rams did. I don't know. Will the Rams defense be good enough to stop that potent offense of the 49ers? I don't think they will. I think the 49ers go on the road and win. However, if there is an upset in the division, that's the one to do it. The Rams right now are looking like the only team that can slow down the 49ers. The Giants at Arizona. Interesting game here. Giants by the Cowboys. Can they go on the road and beat Arizona? I'll tell you what. If that happens, then we know the Cardinals are tanking. Because that shouldn't happen. The way the offense looked last weekend, they should not. The Cardinals should not lose this game. But I think the plan is to get Caleb Williams. So I think the Giants will lose this weekend. The Jets at Dallas. Will the Jets keep that momentum going against the Cowboys? This will be if you're a bet man, take the under on this game. All right? Because this is not going to be a high-scoring game. The final of this game might be 14-13. And I think that the Jets offense will be better than the Giants offense was, but both defenses are going to be really good. The I wouldn't be surprised if Dak throws 3 interceptions because the Jets can bait quarterbacks into throwing their way and get the pick. They've got really good corners, really good safety. I think, yeah, I think the Cowboys will win this weekend, but I think it will be a low-scoring game. Washington versus Denver. Denver lost a tough one last week, 1-point game. Washington struggled in their win over the Cardinals. I think Denver gets away with the win this weekend. Miami versus New England. This one right here, Miami's offense looks really good. New England's offense looks better than I thought it would. We should have another high shootout this week, but I think New England, being the home team, will pull the upset over Miami. And then on Monday night, we actually, every year they have 2 Monday night games. It's usually the first week. I'm not sure why it was week 2 this year, but we have 2 Monday night games. The New Orleans at Carolina will be the first game. And I think Carolina's going to be very good this year. So I got New Orleans going on the road and winning. But their offense is going to have to play better than it did last week. If it does not play better than it did last week, then they will lose. Now, also, Bill's saying so I guess the Lions and the Jets both in 2011 was the last time they started 2-0. And then the last game of the week will be Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Another divisional game for the Cleveland Browns. They started off 2 divisional games. They took care of Cincinnati in week 1. They should really have no problem with Pittsburgh in week 2. Their defense is good enough to keep the Pittsburgh in check, maybe scoring probably no more than 14 points. And their offense is good enough to move the ball on Pittsburgh. If their offensive line can keep Pittsburgh, from getting to the quarterback, then it should be a pretty easy win for the Browns, and probably win like 21-14 or 24-14. Anyway, we're coming to the end of the time. I hope everybody has enjoyed the show tonight. If you haven't already, please take the time to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. That way you get notified every time Old Man Nate goes live or drops a video. Also, we are here every Thursday night at 26 Lounge throughout football season here in Oklahoma City. So if you're in the area, drop by. Our address is going to be 9622 North May Avenue. We'll be here from 6:30 to 8 every Thursday night. And at this time, if you haven't already, please take the time to go to oldmancoffee.shop and you can get you some coffee. We have 47 different flavors. So go to oldmancoffee.shop, get you some coffee. You can also support Old Man Nate by getting you some tumblers to drink your coffee in, or get you some T-shirts right there. And right now we still have a special going on. Buy 2 tumblers, 2 T-shirts, 2 tumblers or 2 T-shirts, or 1 tumbler and 1 T-shirt, and you'll get you a 12-ounce bag of coffee for free. Again, so please, also, if you're watching this after the live, leave some comments. Tell me what you think of the show. Tell me what you think of what I'm talking about. The more comments you get, the more shares I get, the more traction I get. So I appreciate all the support. Thank you guys for watching and subscribing, and thank you for liking and leaving comments. We'll see you next week. We'll talk about week 3 of college football, week 2 of NFL. We'll see you next time on Old Man Sports Talk.